The notification sound was nothing special, just the standard ping my laptop makes when an email arrives. But when I glanced at the screen at 2:47 in the morning, my blood turned to ice. From Maya Chen. Subject: I need your help. Received October 25th, 2025, 2:47 a.m. My sister Maya had been dead for 7 years. I'm Rebecca Chen, and I'm about to tell you something that will challenge everything you think you know about death, technology, and the boundaries between worlds. But before I begin, let me ask you to do something. Take a moment right now and think about someone you've lost. Really think about them. What would you do if they contacted you tomorrow? 7 years ago, my twin sister Maya died in a climbing accident in Yosemite National Park. She was 28 years old, brilliant, adventurous, and my best friend. We shared everything: an apartment in San Francisco, a love of vintage motorcycles, matching tattoos of constellations on our wrists. When she fell from El Capitan on a sunny May afternoon, a part of me fell with her. The ranger who called me spoke in that careful, practiced tone they must teach in training. "Miss Chen, there's been an incident. Your sister, Maya—" I didn't hear the rest. The world had already started collapsing inward, folding itself into a singularity of grief. They recovered her body 3 days later. The fall had been catastrophic, over 800 feet. At the funeral, the casket was closed. Our parents, immigrants who had sacrificed everything to give us opportunities in America, aged a decade in a week. My father stopped speaking in complete sentences. My mother started cooking for 4 people every night, then quietly putting Maya's portion in containers that accumulated in the freezer. I was the one who had to go through Maya's things. Her side of our apartment became a mausoleum I couldn't bear to disturb. Her climbing gear hung by the door for months. Her laptop sat on her desk, password protected, a digital tomb I couldn't bring myself to open. Her phone had been on her when she fell, shattered beyond recovery, they told me. The first year was a fog. I quit my job as a software engineer at a startup, unable to focus on code when my mind kept replaying the last conversation I'd had with Maya. We'd argued about something stupid, whether she should take the Yosemite trip or come to our cousin's wedding instead. "You're always so cautious, Becca," she'd said, laughing. "Sometimes you just have to live." Those were the last words she said to me in person. By year 2, I'd moved to Seattle, needing distance from the places that reminded me of her. I got a job at a cybersecurity firm, work that required enough concentration to keep the grief at bay during daylight hours. Nights were harder. I'd lie awake, scrolling through old photos of us, reading and rereading the text messages I'd saved from her phone. I started seeing Dr. Patel, a therapist who specialized in sibling loss. She said, "Grief for a twin is different. You're not just mourning a sister, you're mourning the person who shared your entire existence from conception. It's like losing half of yourself." She was right. Without Maya, I felt incomplete. I caught myself starting to tell her things, reaching for my phone to text her, turning to where she should be standing, the phantom limb of twinship. Year 3 brought some acceptance. I could think about Maya without immediately breaking down. I started climbing again, something I'd avoided because it was her thing, and found that hanging from rocks hundreds of feet up made me feel closer to her. I met other climbers, people who had known Maya, who shared stories about her fearlessness and her infectious laugh. Years 4, 5, and 6 passed in a blur of work, climbing trips, and therapy sessions. I dated occasionally, but never seriously. How do you explain to someone that you're still in love with the ghost of your dead twin? Not romantic love, but something deeper. That cellular connection that began when we were just clusters of dividing cells in our mother's womb. I kept Maya's laptop. I'd moved it with me to Seattle, unable to open it, but unable to let it go. It sat in the storage unit with boxes of her clothes, her journals, her camera equipment. Every few months, I'd pay the bill and promise myself I'd finally go through everything. I never did. Then came October 24th, 2025, a Friday. I'd been working late on a security audit, the kind of tedious work that required hours of concentration. Around midnight, I decided to power through the night rather than stop and lose momentum. I was deep in code analysis when that email notification pinged. At first, I thought it was spam or some kind of phishing attempt. Someone must have hacked an old account, I reasoned. I almost deleted it without opening, but something made me click. The email was simple. Becca, I know this seems impossible. I know you buried me 7 years ago, but I need you to listen. I need you to believe. Something went wrong. I'm trapped somewhere between, and I've been trying to reach you for so long. Check the laptop, my laptop. There's a file dated today. Open it. I'm so sorry for everything. I'm so scared. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely control the mouse. This had to be a cruel joke. But who would do this? Who even knew about Maya anymore, except family and a few close friends? I checked the email headers, something I could do in my sleep after years in cybersecurity. The email had originated from an IP address I didn't recognize, routed through multiple servers, encrypted in a way that was both sophisticated and strange. The metadata was corrupted, showing impossible timestamps, some from 2018, some from next month, some from dates that didn't exist. My rational mind fought with something deeper, more primal, the twin sense we'd always had, the ability to know when something was wrong with the other. I'd felt it the moment Maya died, a sudden sharp pain in my chest at 3:17 p.m. on that May afternoon, hours before the ranger called. I looked at the clock. 2:53 a.m. I was alone in my apartment, the city silent around me except for the occasional siren. I could ignore this email, delete it, go to bed, pretend it never happened. Instead, I drove to the storage unit. The facility was 24 hours, thankfully. The security guard barely glanced up as I signed in. I took the elevator to the 3rd floor and walked down the fluorescent-lit corridor to 314. The lock's combination was Maya's birthday, the one piece of her I accessed regularly. Inside were the boxes I'd been avoiding for 7 years. I found the laptop immediately, a MacBook Pro covered in stickers from national parks and climbing brands. I'd kept it charged using a trickle charger, another one of those irrational things I did to maintain connection with my dead sister. I carried it back to my car and sat in the parking lot, the laptop on my lap, staring at the login screen. Maya's background photo, the two of us at the top of Half Dome, arms around each other, grinning at the camera on a selfie stick. We'd taken that photo 3 weeks before she died. I'd never known Maya's password. We'd been close, but everyone deserves privacy. I tried the obvious ones, birthdays, pet names, favorite climbing routes. Nothing worked. After the 5th attempt, I expected the laptop to lock me out. Instead, it unlocked. The desktop loaded, and sitting there, impossibly, was a folder I'd never seen before. It was labeled with today's date, October 25th, 2025. The creation timestamp showed 2:47 a.m., the same time the email had arrived. I sat in my car, hands frozen on the keyboard, unable to move. This was impossible. The laptop had been in storage, unplugged from the internet. How could a new file appear? I clicked the folder. Inside was a single video file for Becca.mp4. My cursor hovered over it for what felt like hours, but was probably seconds. Every instinct I had screamed that this was wrong, impossible, a violation of the natural order. Dead people don't send emails. They don't create files on old laptops locked in storage. I double-clicked. The video player opened. For a few seconds, there was only static, the kind of grainy interference you used to see on old TVs. Then the image resolved into something that made my heart stop. It was Maya. Not a photo, not old footage. Her face filled the screen, moving, alive, speaking. But something was wrong. The image flickered at the edges, unstable, like a bad transmission. Her face phased in and out of focus. Behind her was only darkness, absolute and complete. Becca. Her voice was distorted, layered, as if multiple versions of her were speaking slightly out of sync. If you're watching this, I finally got through. I've been trying for so long. Time works differently here. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The rational part of my brain insisted this was a deepfake, some AI-generated recreation. But the technology wasn't there yet. And more than that, I knew my sister. I knew the exact way she tilted her head when concentrating, the way she bit her lower lip when nervous, the specific pattern of her speech. This was Maya. She continued, I didn't die. Not completely. Something happened when I fell. I can't explain it well because I still don't fully understand. It was like the moment of death opened something, a door, a space between. I've been here ever since. The camera angle shifted, though I couldn't tell if Maya was moving or if the space around her was changing. Here is nowhere and everywhere. I can see things, moments in time, places, people, but I can't interact. I'm like a ghost, but not in the way stories describe. I'm conscious, I'm aware, but I'm trapped. My vision blurred with tears. This couldn't be real. Maya was dead. I'd mourned her for 7 years. I'd built a life around her absence. If this was real, if she'd been conscious and trapped all this time while I'd moved on? The laptop, Maya said, as if reading my thoughts. It's connected to me somehow. Technology, consciousness, they're not as separate as you think. I've been learning, trying to understand the rules of this place. Information flows here in strange ways. I figured out I could send signals through devices that were important to us. The laptop has our DNA on it, skin cells, hair, and something about that biological signature combined with the electromagnetic field of the device created a bridge. She paused, and the image flickered dangerously. I don't have much time. The connection is unstable. Becca, I need you to do something for me. I need you to go back to Yosemite, to the place where I fell. There's something there, a fragment of me maybe, or a doorway I can use. I've been trying to manifest physically, to pull myself back through, but I need help from your side. This is insane, I whispered to the empty car, but I kept watching. I know what you're thinking, Maya said, and her voice cracked. For the first time, she sounded scared. You think this is a trick, that I'm a hallucination, that grief has finally broken you. But Becca, remember the constellation game? The one we played as kids that no one knew about? My breath caught. The constellation game. When we were 7, Maya and I had created a secret game where we'd connect freckles on our arms to make up new constellations, giving them ridiculous names. We'd never told anyone, not our parents, not friends, no one. On the screen, Maya held up her arm, and even through the distortion,
I could see the pattern of freckles we'd called the dancing penguin. "I'm real, Becca. I'm still here. I just need help getting back." The video started breaking up, pixels fragmenting. "Go to Yosemite, to El Capitan. I'll guide you from here, but you need to hurry. The window is closing. I can feel it. If I miss this chance, I might not get another one." The screen went dark. I sat in the car, shaking, the laptop growing warm on my legs. The video file was gone. When I opened the folder again, it was empty. I drove home on autopilot, my mind racing. This was impossible, but so was the video. So was the email with corrupted timestamps. So was the unlocked laptop with Maya's files appearing from nowhere. By the time I reached my apartment, the sun was rising. I called in sick for work, first time in 3 years. Then I did what any software engineer would do when faced with the impossible. I started gathering data. I went back through every email I'd ever saved from Maya, pulled up our text message archives, dug through old photos, videos, anything with her digital footprint. Then I started cross-referencing with the strange email and video file. The patterns were subtle, but consistent. The email's encryption signature matched methods Maya had been researching before she died. Quantum cryptography, something she'd been fascinated by. The video's compression algorithm was one she'd written code for in graduate school, a project that had never gone anywhere. More than that, there were personality markers, the way she'd explain things, her word choices, the specific kind of humor. If this was a deepfake or an AI recreation, whoever made it had access to incredibly detailed information about Maya's life, personality, and technical work. Or it was really her. I spent 3 days investigating, barely eating or sleeping. I reached out to old contacts from the climbing community, asking careful questions about the day Maya died. I reviewed the accident reports I'd avoided for 7 years. I studied maps of El Capitan, trying to understand the exact location of her fall. During those 3 days, more emails arrived. Each one came at odd hours. 2:47 a.m. seemed to be a favorite time. The messages were short, urgent. "Becca, please believe me. Time is running out. I can feel myself fading. The window closes on the 7th anniversary. That's tomorrow." Tomorrow. 7 years to the day Maya had fallen. I checked the calendar, feeling ice in my veins. The anniversary of her death was October 29th. If the emails were real, I had less than 24 hours. I called my parents for the first time in months. They still lived in San Francisco, still kept Maya's childhood rune exactly as it had been. My mother answered, and I could hear the surprise in her voice. "Rebecca? What's wrong?" I almost told her everything, almost described the emails, the video, the impossible hope blooming in my chest. But I couldn't do that to them. If this was a delusion, if I was finally having the breakdown Dr. Patel had warned might come, I couldn't drag my parents into it. "I'm going to Yosemite," I said instead. I need to be there for the anniversary." There was a long pause. Then my mother said, "We understand. Your father and I will light incense. We'll think of her." "Mom," I said, my voice breaking, "if I told you something impossible, would you believe me?" Another pause. "Sweetheart, I carried you and your sister together inside me. I felt you both kick at the same time. I knew when you were happy or sad, even when you were apart. Twins have a connection that defies logic. So yes, if you told me something impossible about Maya, I would believe you." I hung up and booked a flight to Fresno, the closest airport to Yosemite. Then I gathered climbing gear I hadn't used in months. Harness, rope, carabiners, helmet. I packed Maya's laptop, wrapping it carefully in bubble wrap. I didn't know what I'd need, but I was going prepared. The flight was turbulent, appropriately dramatic for the surreal mission I was on. I rented a car and drove through the night toward the park. The roads were familiar. Maya and I had made this drive dozens of times, usually singing badly to whatever music she'd queued up, planning routes we wanted to climb. I arrived at Yosemite Village just after midnight. The park was quiet, most tourists already asleep. I found a parking spot with a view of El Capitan, the massive granite monolith illuminated by moonlight. Somewhere on that face, 7 years ago, my sister had fallen to her death. I opened the laptop. Another email was waiting. "You came. Thank you for believing. Tomorrow at sunrise, climb to the Dawn Wall route. Start at the base. I'll meet you there. There's something you need to know, Becca. I'm not the only one. There are others here between. Most are confused, lost, but some have been here longer. They've learned things, dangerous things. They want to come back too, and they don't care who they hurt to do it. Be careful. Trust your instincts. And Becca, I love you. Always have, always will, even from here." I slept fitfully in the car, waking every hour to check the time. Finally, at 5:30 a.m., I gave up and started gearing up. The sunrise climb Maya had specified would begin soon. The approach to El Capitan's base is a hike through Jeffrey Pine Forest. I'd done it before, but never alone, never in the pre-dawn darkness with nothing but a headlamp and a mission that defied sanity. Every sound made me jump. Branches cracking, animals moving in the underbrush, the distant call of a raven. I reached the base of Dawn Wall just as the sky began to lighten. The massive granite face rose above me, over 3,000 feet of sheer rock. This was one of the world's most famous climbs, the route Tommy Caldwell had free climbed after years of attempts. Maya had dreamed of climbing it someday. I set up my anchor points and checked my gear 3 times. I'm a competent climber, but I was out of practice and emotionally compromised. Not ideal conditions for scaling one of the world's most challenging rock faces. The first pitch went smoothly. The familiar rhythm of climbing, reach, grip, test, push, calmed my mind. As I ascended, the sun broke over the horizon, painting the granite gold and orange. It was breathtakingly beautiful, and I understood why Maya had loved this place enough to die here. At the third pitch, about 400 feet up, something changed. The air seemed to thicken. I felt a presence, something I couldn't name. My twin sense, dormant for 7 years, suddenly activated. Maya was close. "Becca." Her voice didn't come from above or below. It came from everywhere and nowhere, resonating in my bones rather than my ears. "Maya?" I called out, feeling foolish but desperate. "Where are you?" "Look up." I did. About 50 feet above me, there was a slight overhang, the kind of feature that makes climbing challenging. But there was something else. A shimmering in the air, like heat waves rising from summer pavement. The shimmer coalesced, and for just a moment, I saw her. Maya hung in the air, not quite solid, not quite ghost. She looked exactly as she had 7 years ago, 28, strong, alive. But she was translucent, and through her I could see the rock face. "This is where I died," she said, and her voice was clearer now. "This exact spot. The moment of transition, it left something, a mark, a tear in the fabric between worlds." I was crying, unable to help myself. "Maya, I don't understand any of this." "Neither do I, not completely. but I've had 7 years to study it. Death isn't an end, it's a passage. Most people go through it completely. They move on to whatever's next. But sometimes, in violent deaths, traumatic deaths, the passage gets interrupted. The person gets stuck halfway through. She flickered, fading and strengthening. There are dozens of us trapped here in this park alone. Climbers who fell, hikers who got lost, people who died suddenly and weren't ready. We exist in a space between seconds, watching the world continue without us. "That's horrible," I whispered. "It is. But I found something. Way back. The tear in the fabric, it can be opened from both sides. I can push from here, but I need someone on your side to pull. Someone with a blood connection. Someone who shared my cells." "What do I need to do?" Maya's form solidified slightly. "Keep climbing. Get to the overhang. There's a specific hold, shaped like a crescent moon. Place your hand there and think of me. Remember our connection, the biological signature combined with the emotional bond and the location of the tear. It might be enough to pull me through." "And if it works?" I asked. "What happens?" She smiled, that familiar Maya smile that lit up her whole face. "Then I come back. Not as I was. I'll be changed maybe, but alive. Real, physical. We can be sisters again." "And if it doesn't work?" Her smile faded. "Then I'm stuck here forever. The window only opens on significant anniversaries. The next one would be year 14, and I don't know if I can hold on that long. This place, it degrades you. Some of the ones who've been here decades, they're barely human anymore. Just echoes. I don't want to become an echo, Becca." I wiped my tears and started climbing again. The route was challenging, requiring all my concentration. I couldn't think about the impossibility of what I was doing, couldn't question the reality of speaking with my dead sister's ghost. I just had to climb. The overhang was treacherous. My arms burned with fatigue. I'd gained maybe 150 feet since stopping, and I was breathing hard. But I could see it now, the hold Maya had described, shaped like a crescent moon, worn smooth by countless climbers' hands. I secured myself with extra anchors. If this went wrong, I wasn't going to follow Maya in death. I positioned myself directly below the moon hold, my fingertips just able to brush its surface. "I'm here," I called out. "What now?"
Maya appeared beside me, close enough to touch if she'd been solid. "Place your hand on the hold. Think of us, our shared beginning, every moment we existed together. The connection that goes deeper than consciousness, down to the cellular level. Think of twin DNA, two bodies from one egg, one moment of conception split into two lives." I reached up and placed my palm flat against the moon hold. The rock was cool and smooth. I closed my eyes and did as Maya instructed. I thought of the womb we'd shared, though I couldn't remember it consciously. I thought of being babies, toddlers, always together. I thought of starting school hand in hand, of birthday parties where we'd blow out candles together, of the countless nights we'd stayed up talking about everything and nothing, of the matching constellation tattoos we'd gotten at 18, of fighting and making up and fighting again because that's what siblings do. I thought of the day she died, of the pain that had torn through me at 3:17 p.m., the moment I'd felt her die, felt that golden thread connecting us snap like a rotten rope. And I imagined that thread reweaving itself, cells calling to cells, sister calling to sister, life calling back what death had taken. The rock grew warm under my hand, then hot. Energy pulsed through it, up my arm, into my chest. The air around me began to shimmer and distort.
I heard sounds, voices, whispers, screams, as if 1,000 trapped souls were crying out at once. "Hold on," Maya's voice came from everywhere. "Don't let go. They're trying to stop it. The others, they want the doorway opened for them, but I won't let them through. This is just for me, just for us." The heat became unbearable. I gritted my teeth and pressed harder against the hold. Wind that came from nowhere whipped around us. The rock face itself seemed to ripple like water. Reality was coming apart at the seams. Then, in a flash of light so bright I had to close my eyes, something changed. The heat vanished. The wind died. The whispers stopped. And someone was standing on the rock face beside me. Not floating, not translucent, standing. Maya. She was solid, real. She wore the same climbing clothes she died in, now somehow pristine. Her eyes were wide with shock, and she was breathing in great gasping gulps as if she'd just surfaced from deep underwater. "Becca," she said, and her voice was normal, physical, produced by lungs and vocal cords instead of resonating from nowhere. "It worked! Oh my God, it actually worked!" I was shaking too hard to speak. She reached out and touched my face, and her hand was warm and solid and real. "We need to get down," she said, suddenly practical. "I don't know how long this will hold. The others, they're angry. They might try to pull me back." We descended as quickly as safety allowed, which wasn't very quick at all. Every movement was careful, deliberate. Maya moved like she'd never stopped climbing, her muscle memory intact despite 7 years of death. We didn't talk during the descent. There was too much to say and no words adequate for saying it. When we finally reached the ground, we collapsed onto the pine needles. Maya lay on her back, staring up at the sky, tears running down her temples into her hair. "I can feel everything," she whispered. "The sun, the breeze, the hard ground under my back." I'd forgotten what physical sensation was like. In that place, there was only thought. No body, no sensory input except what I could observe from the outside. I took her hand and held it tight. It was real. She was real. My sister had come back from the dead. "What happens now?" I asked. She sat up, looking at her hands as if seeing them for the first time. "I don't know. I didn't think past getting back. I didn't dare hope it would actually work." She looked at me, and her expression was vulnerable in a way I'd never seen before. "Becca, I don't exist anymore. Legally, I'm dead. I don't have ID, records, anything. And I'm 7 years out of time. The world moved on without me." "We'll figure it out," I said firmly. "I'm a software engineer. I know people who can help with identity issues. We'll create a new life for you." "And Mom and Dad?" she asked quietly. "How do we explain this to them?" That was the question I'd been avoiding. How do you tell your parents their dead daughter is alive? How do you give them that hope and then expect them to keep it secret? Because Maya was right. We couldn't just announce her resurrection. There would be questions, investigations, media attention. "One step at a time," I said. "First, let's get you somewhere safe. Then we'll figure out the rest." We hiked back to my car. Maya moved slowly, occasionally stopping to touch things, tree bark, rocks, flowers, as if memorizing the texture of physical reality. I watched her with a mixture of joy and trepidation. I'd gotten my sister back, but I was also harboring a legally dead person who somehow returned from the afterlife. The situation was complex beyond any normal definition. We drove out of the park in silence. Maya sat in the passenger seat, window down, hand out feeling the wind. I kept glancing at her, half expecting her to vanish like a dream. It's different, being back. I thought it would be the same, but I'm not the same person who died. 7 years of existing as pure consciousness, watching the world from the outside, it changes you. "How?" I asked. She was quiet for a long moment. "I saw things I shouldn't have been able to see. Private moments, secrets. I watched our parents grieve. I watched you struggle. I saw Dad cry himself to sleep for months. I saw Mom stop eating, stop caring. I saw you move to Seattle and try to rebuild your life without me. You were watching us? Not intentionally at first. I was just conscious, observing. But gradually I learned to direct my attention. I could visit places, people I cared about. I watched over our family. I saw your life unfold. I saw you on dates that went nowhere because you couldn't let yourself fully connect with anyone. I saw you climb alone, pushing yourself too hard, almost like you were trying to join me. I saw your grief, and I couldn't do anything to ease it. That was its own kind of hell. We stopped in a motel outside Fresno. I paid cash for a room, figuring it was better not to leave a credit card trail. Inside, Maya stood in the middle of the room looking overwhelmed. A bed. A real bed. I can sleep again. I can eat. I can do all the things I took for granted before. I ordered pizza delivery, unsure if someone who'd been dead could actually eat, but when it arrived, Maya devoured 3 slices, closing her eyes in bliss at each bite. This is the best food I've ever tasted, though that might be because I haven't tasted anything in 7 years. We talked through the night, making up for lost time. Maya described what it was like in the between place, how time didn't flow linearly, how she could observe multiple moments simultaneously. She told me about the others trapped there, some recent, some ancient, all conscious but unable to interact with the physical world.
There was one, she said, who'd been there since the 1920s, a prospector who died in a mine collapse. He'd been conscious for almost 100 years, alone in the dark. That's what I was afraid of becoming, aware forever, unable to die completely, unable to live. What made you different? I asked. Why could you figure out how to come back when others couldn't? She shrugged. Maybe the twin connection. Maybe because I died violently and suddenly. So the transition was interrupted in a specific way. Maybe just luck. I don't fully understand the mechanics. I just knew there was a possibility and I had to try. The others, I said, remembering her warning. The ones who wanted to come through. What would have happened if they'd succeeded? Maya's face darkened. Nothing good. Some of them have been in that place so long they've lost their humanity. They're just hunger and need and anger. If they'd come through, they'd have taken bodies, displaced the living people. It would have been a kind of possession. I couldn't let that happen. We fell asleep as the sun rose, Maya in one bed, me in the other. I woke several times to check that she was still there, still real, still breathing. Each time, relief washed over me. The next day, we drove back to Seattle. Maya stared out the window the whole way, taking in the changes in the world. She'd missed 7 years of technological advancement, political shifts, cultural changes. She died in 2018, before the pandemic, before everything that had reshaped society. It's like I time traveled, she said. Everything is familiar but different. The cars, the phones, the way people dress. I have 7 years of history to catch up on. At my apartment, I set Maya up in the guest room I'd been using for storage. We spent the next week in a bubble, just the two of us, as I tried to help her readjust to being alive. She learned to use a smartphone again. She caught up on world events. She read news articles, watched videos, tried to fill in the gaps. But we both knew we couldn't hide forever. Eventually, we'd have to deal with the practical realities of her situation. I reached out to a contact from my darker days in college, someone who'd gone into gray market identity services. For the right price, he could create a new identity, birth certificate, social security number, credit history, all of it. It wasn't legal, but it was necessary. She'll need a new name, he said over an encrypted chat. Something completely different, no connections to the old identity. Maya chose the name Lily Wang,
close enough to our heritage, but different enough that no one would connect us. The identity documents arrived 2 weeks later. Lily Wang, born in Seattle, software engineer, like me, completely fictional but legally sound. Maya, Lily, studied the papers with a strange expression. This is who I am now. Maya Chen died 7 years ago. Lily Wang is who came back. The hardest part was our parents. We debated for weeks about whether to tell them. The secret felt like a betrayal every day we kept it, but the risks were enormous. Could they handle the truth? Could they keep the secret? Would the shock of seeing their dead daughter alive be too much? Finally, Maya made the decision. They deserve to know. I need to see them, even if it's just once. We drove to San Francisco on a Saturday. My parents still lived in the same house where we'd grown up. I'd called ahead saying I was bringing a friend who'd known Maya. They'd agreed, sounding pleased that I was finally opening up about my sister's death. When we walked through the door, my mother was in the kitchen making tea. She came out, smiling, ready to greet us. Then she saw Maya. The teacup slipped from her hands and shattered on the floor. She made a sound I'd never heard before, somewhere between a gasp and a scream. My father rushed in from the other room, and he too froze when he saw Maya. "Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. I'm home." My mother fainted. My father caught her, lowering her to the couch, while staring at Maya as if she were a ghost, which, in a way, she had been. The next hours were chaos. Explanations that explained nothing, tears and embraces and disbelief. My parents touched Maya constantly, as if reassuring themselves she was solid and real. They asked questions we couldn't fully answer. We thought it was a mistake. She was misidentified. She's been suffering from amnesia, living in Seattle, and she only recently recovered her memories. It was a thin lie, but it was all we had. My parents didn't care. They had their daughter back. The how and why mattered less than the fact itself. We stayed in San Francisco for 3 days. It was like stepping back in time, pretending we were a complete family again. My mother cooked all of Maya's favorite foods. My father took time off work for the first time in years. We looked through old photo albums and told stories, carefully avoiding the 7-year gap. But underneath the joy was tension. My parents aren't fools. They knew something was wrong with our story. The details didn't add up. Maya couldn't explain where she'd been or why she hadn't contacted them. She had no memories of the supposed amnesia period. The lies were transparent, but my parents chose to accept them rather than push for truth that might shatter this miracle. On the third night, my mother pulled me aside in the kitchen. "Rebecca," she said quietly, "I don't understand what happened. I don't understand how Maya is here when I watched them lower her casket into the ground. But I'm not going to question it. Some gifts are not meant to be examined too closely." "Mom," I started, but she held up her hand. "I know you're protecting us from something. I know there's more to this story. But unless it puts Maya in danger, I don't need to know. I just need to know that she's real and she's here." She paused, her eyes filling with tears. "Is she in danger? Is someone after her?" I thought about the others in the between place, the angry spirits who'd tried to come through. "No," I said honestly. "She's safe now. She's really back." My mother nodded and pulled me into a hug. "Then that's all that matters. My daughters are both alive. That's all I need to know." We returned to Seattle, and Maya, Lily, began building a life. With her new identity documents, she was able to get an apartment in my building. She found work as a freelance web designer, something she could do remotely without too many questions about her employment history. But adjusting wasn't easy. She'd come back changed in ways that became more apparent as weeks passed. She had gaps in her memory, whole years from her original life that had faded during her time in the between place. She also had new abilities, strange sensitivities that seemed to be after effects of her death and resurrection. I can sometimes see them.
she admitted one night. We were having dinner in her new apartment, and she was staring out the window at the Seattle skyline. The ones who are stuck. Not clearly, just impressions, shadows where there shouldn't be shadows. Is it frightening? I asked. Sometimes, but mostly it's sad. They're everywhere, Becca. People who died suddenly, traumatically. They're trapped in that in-between state, watching the world continue without them. I want to help them, but I don't know how. That's when the idea started forming. If Maya had found a way back, maybe others could too. Maybe there was a way to help the trapped souls cross over, either back to life or onward to whatever came next. Maya began researching, diving deep into physics, consciousness studies, near-death experiences, quantum mechanics, anything that might explain what had happened to her. She connected with fringe scientists, mystics, people who studied the boundaries between life and death. There's a pattern, she told me 6 months after her return. Deaths that occur in certain conditions create these tears in reality, violent deaths, sudden deaths, deaths where the person wasn't ready to go. The trauma of the moment creates a kind of rift. And you think these rifts can be accessed? I asked. I think they can be healed, or maybe open just enough to let the trapped souls through. Not back to life, that's too complicated, too specific, but through to whatever comes after death, a complete crossing instead of being stuck halfway. It became her mission. We started traveling to places where she sensed these rifts, accident sites, hospitals, old battlefields, anywhere that death had occurred suddenly and traumatically. Maya would stand in these places, close her eyes, and somehow communicate with the trapped souls. I watched her work, fascinated and disturbed. She'd speak in languages she didn't know, relay messages from the dead to living relatives, help spirits find peace so they could move on. It was exhausting work that left her drained for days afterward. I'm paying it forward, she explained. I got a second chance. The least I can do is help others find their way forward, even if it's not back to life. A year after her resurrection, Maya, I still thought of her as Maya even though she went by Lily now, met someone. His name was James, a grief counselor who worked with families who'd lost loved ones. He lost his own wife 3 years earlier in a car accident, and something about his understanding of loss drew Maya to him. Their relationship developed slowly. Maya was hesitant to get close to anyone, afraid of the questions that might arise, afraid of the lie she'd have to maintain. But James was patient, and he didn't push for details about her past. I think he suspects something, she told me one evening. We were at my apartment, having our weekly sister dinner that we'd maintained religiously since her return. He looks at me sometimes like he's trying to figure out a puzzle, but he doesn't ask. Maybe because he's afraid of the answer. Are you going to tell him? She was quiet for a long time. I don't know. How do you tell someone you love that you died and came back? That you spent 7 years as a disembodied consciousness watching the world from outside? That you still sometimes see the dead and help them cross over? It's too much. It's impossible. You told me, I pointed out. You're my twin. You're the one who brought me back. That's different. She picked at her food, suddenly looking tired. Sometimes I wonder if I should have stayed where I was. Coming back means lying constantly. It means hiding who I really am. It means knowing that everyone I care about could be taken from me at any moment because I've seen how thin the line between life and death really is. Do you regret it? I asked, afraid of the answer. She looked up at me, and her eyes were clear. No, never. Being alive, even with all the complications, is better than that limbo. I just wish I could be fully honest with everyone. 2 years after her resurrection, Maya and James got engaged. My parents were overjoyed, though I could see the worry in my mother's eyes. She still didn't understand what really happened, but she feared that somehow Maya might disappear again. The wedding was small, just close family and a few friends. Maya looked beautiful in a simple dress, her hair adorned with the wildflower she'd always loved.
As James said his vows, promising to love her for the rest of their lives, I saw Maya's hand tremble slightly. She was thinking the same thing I was, that death had already parted them once, in a way James didn't know about. But she said I do with conviction, choosing to embrace life and love despite knowing how fragile both could be. I was her maid of honor, of course. In my toast, I talked about the bond between twins, about how Maya had always been the brave one, the one who took risks and pushed boundaries. I didn't mention that she'd pushed the ultimate boundary, the one between life and death, and found her way back. The next few years passed in a kind of peaceful normality. Maya and James bought a house. She continued her work helping trapped souls, though she was discreet about it. I dated occasionally, but never seriously, finding it hard to connect with anyone who hadn't experienced the impossible the way my sister and I had. Then, 3 years after her resurrection, Maya got pregnant. She called me in a panic. "Becca, I don't know if this is possible. I don't know if someone who died and came back can create life. What if something is wrong with the baby? What if I'm not really alive enough to sustain a pregnancy?" "We'll figure it out together," I promised. "We've dealt with impossible before."
The pregnancy was normal, thankfully. Every ultrasound showed a healthy baby growing inside Maya. But she remained anxious throughout, convinced that something would go wrong, that her resurrection had somehow damaged her ability to create and sustain life. On a rainy November morning, Maya gave birth to a daughter. She was perfect. 10 fingers, 10 toes, a healthy cry, everything exactly as it should be. They named her Elena, meaning bright light. I was in the delivery room when Elena was born, and I saw something that took my breath away. As the baby emerged, I saw a shimmer around Maya, the same kind of shimmer I'd seen that day on El Capitan when Maya was still between worlds. For just a moment, I saw other figures in the room, translucent, barely visible. Spirits who'd been drawn to this moment of life emerging from someone who'd crossed the boundary of death. Maya saw them too. I could tell by the way her eyes tracked movements James and the doctors couldn't see. But she focused on her daughter, holding Elena close, tears streaming down her face. "She's real," Maya whispered. "She's alive. I made life." It was the final proof that Maya's resurrection was complete. She wasn't just a consciousness in a body, not just a spirit wearing flesh. She was fully alive, capable of all the things living people could do, including creating new life. As Elena grew, we noticed something unusual about her. She had sensitivity similar to Maya's. She'd stare at empty corners of rooms. She'd talk about the fuzzy people that adults couldn't see. At first, James was concerned, thinking Elena might have psychological issues. But Maya and I knew better. She inherited it, Maya told me when Elena was 2 years old, the ability to see between worlds. It passed to her somehow, through my changed DNA or through the circumstances of my resurrection. I don't know which. "Is that dangerous?" I asked, watching Elena play with her toys while simultaneously seeming to interact with something invisible. "I don't think so. She's not afraid of it. It's just part of how she perceives the world." Maya smiled softly. "Maybe that's a gift. She'll grow up knowing that death isn't the end, that consciousness persists. Maybe that will make her fearless in the right ways." 4 years after her resurrection, Maya finally told James the truth. They were lying in bed one night, Elena asleep in the next room, when Maya just couldn't carry the lie anymore. "I need to tell you something. Something impossible. And after I tell you, you might not want to be with me anymore, but I can't keep lying to you." And she told him everything. The fall, the 7 years of consciousness in the between place, the emails and videos,
The Climb Up El Capitan, The Resurrection. James listened in silence. When she finished, he was quiet for so long that Maya started to panic, thinking she'd lost him. Then he said, "I knew something had happened. I've worked with enough grief and trauma to recognize someone who's been through something extraordinary. I didn't know what it was, but I knew it was significant." He took her hand. "I don't understand how any of this is possible, but I've seen you help people find peace. I've seen you do things that seem impossible, and I know the woman I love is real regardless of how she came to be here." Maya cried with relief. James held her, and in that moment another weight lifted from her shoulders. She could be fully herself with her husband, no more secrets between them. 5 years after the resurrection, we held a private ceremony at El Capitan. My parents, James, Elena, and I hiked to the base of Dawn Wall. Maya wanted to leave an offering, a thanks to whatever forces had allowed her return. We placed flowers at the base, wildflowers Maya had gathered from the meadows. She spoke a prayer not to any god specifically, but to the universe itself. A prayer of gratitude for her second chance and of peace for those still trapped between worlds. As we stood there, I felt the shimmer in the air again. I saw shapes, suggestions of forms, spirits gathering around us. They weren't threatening. They seemed curious, hopeful, maybe even happy that one of their number had made it back. Maya raised her hand in a gesture of farewell and blessing. Then she turned away from the rock face, taking James's hand, picking up Elena, and walking back toward the world of the living. I followed, glancing back once to see the spirits fading. They were still there, still trapped, but somehow they seemed less lost than before. Maybe Maya's return had given them hope. Maybe just knowing it was possible changed something for them. Now, 7 years after Maya's resurrection, life has settled into something approaching normal. Maya, Lily, runs a grief counseling center with James. They help families process loss, and quietly, Maya helps trapped souls move on. They've helped hundreds of people find peace on both sides of death's divide. Elena is 6 years old now, bright and curious. She talks openly about the spirits she sees, and we're teaching her how to help them without being frightened. She's already showing signs of abilities beyond Maya's. She can sometimes communicate directly with the trapped souls, serving as a bridge between worlds. My parents are aging but happy, grateful for the years they've had with Maya that they never thought they'd get. They still don't know the full truth, and we've decided they don't need to. Some mysteries are better left unsolved. As for me, I'm still in Seattle, still working in cybersecurity, but I've also become the keeper of records for Maya's work. I document the cases, track the patterns, try to understand the science, if it can be called that, behind what happened. Maybe we'll understand it fully. Maybe we never will. I've learned that reality is far stranger and flexible than we imagine. I've learned that consciousness persists beyond death, that love can transcend impossible boundaries, that the connection between twins goes deeper than blood or bone or even life itself. My sister died 7 years before she sent me that email. She spent 7 years trapped between worlds, conscious but unable to interact, watching life continue without her. And then through a combination of technology, biology, love, and forces we still don't understand, she found her way back. She's not the same person who fell from El Capitan 12 years ago. How could she be? Death changed her. The between place changed her. Resurrection changed her. She's softer now, more patient, more appreciative of small moments. She doesn't take anything for granted because she knows how fragile the boundary between existence and non-existence really is. But she's stronger. She's survived something most people can't even imagine. She's walked through death and returned. She's built a new life from nothing, created beauty and meaning from an impossible situation. She's helped countless souls find peace using her unique perspective to bridge the gap between the living and the dead.
Sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, I think about the choice Maya made. She could have stayed in that between place, avoided the complications of resurrection, the constant lying, the fear of being discovered. But she chose to fight her way back, to embrace the messiness and difficulty of physical existence. I think about what that choice says about the value of life. Even with all its pain and loss and impermanence, being alive is worth fighting for, worth risking everything for, worth crossing impossible boundaries for. I got a second chance with my sister, something most people who lose someone never get. I don't take that for granted. Every time I see Maya, Lily, I remember what it was like to lose her. Every time I hear her laugh or watch her interact with her daughter, I'm grateful for the impossibility that brought her back. The laptop that started everything sits on my shelf now, carefully preserved. Sometimes I'll power it up and check, half expecting another message from beyond. But Maya doesn't need it anymore. She's here, solid and real, living and breathing and being. Though sometimes, when we're together, I'll catch her staring off into the distance with that particular expression I've come to recognize. She's seeing them, the trapped souls, the ones still waiting for their own miracles. And I know she's thinking about ways to help them, to give them what she received, a second chance, or at least a peaceful crossing. Do you ever regret it? I asked her recently. We were sitting on her porch, watching Elena play in the yard, the sun setting behind the mountains. Coming back, I mean, knowing what you know about death, about what comes after. Does being alive feel like a step backward? She thought about it for a long time. No, she said finally. The between place wasn't peaceful, not really. It was observation without participation. I could see everything, but experience nothing. No touch, no taste, no physical sensation. Just pure consciousness with no way to interact with the world. She watched Alina chase butterflies, her face soft with love. This is better. Being able to hold my daughter, kiss my husband, hug my sister, feeling the sun on my face and the rain on my skin. Even pain is better than that numbness. Being alive means being able to affect things, to make choices that matter, to create change in the world. And the trapped souls? I asked. Knowing they're out there, stuck, unable to move forward, does that haunt you? Every day, she admitted. But that's why I do what I do. I can't bring them all back. That's too specific, too difficult, too dependent on unique circumstances. But I can help them cross over completely. I can be the guide they need to let go and move on to whatever comes next. She turned to look at me, and her eyes held depths they'd never had before her death. You know what I learned in that place, Becca? Death isn't the end of consciousness. It's just a transition. Most people make the transition smoothly. They die and they move on to wherever souls go. But some get stuck, and being stuck is its own kind of hell. What comes after? I asked, the question I'd been wanting to ask for years. When souls cross over completely, where do they go? Maya smiled. I don't know. I never made it that far. I was stuck in the in-between, the waiting room. But I caught glimpses sometimes when other souls crossed over successfully. There's something beyond, something bright and vast and incomprehensible. It's not heaven in the traditional sense, but it's not nothing either. It's elsewhere, another state of being entirely. Elena ran up to us then, breathless and laughing, holding a butterfly that had landed on her finger. "Mama, look, she chose me." Maya lifted her daughter onto her lap, examining the butterfly with appropriate seriousness. "She's beautiful. What will you name her?" "Hope," she decided, because butterflies are hope with wings. Maya caught my eye over Elena's head, and we shared a smile. Her daughter's words were more profound than she knew. Butterflies, symbols of transformation, of life emerging from death, of metamorphosis and rebirth. Maya was a caterpillar who died and was reborn as something new. Not quite the same as before, but perhaps better adapted to navigate both the world of the living and the realm of the dead. As the sun set and we went inside for dinner, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the impossible, for the second chance, for the sister I'd lost and found again, for the mystery and strangeness of existence itself. The laptop that received those first impossible emails is a relic now, a reminder of how thin the boundary between possible and impossible really is. How technology and consciousness and love can combine in unexpected ways to bridge impossible gaps. Sometimes people ask me if I believe in miracles. I tell them I don't have to believe. I've witnessed one. I've watched my sister return from death itself, not as a ghost or a zombie or a shadow, but as a living, breathing, thinking, feeling human being who went on to build a life and create new life. If that's not a miracle, then the word has no meaning. But I also know that miracles come with complications. Maya will always be looking over her shoulder, afraid that someone will discover the truth. She'll always carry the weight of knowing what she knows about death and the trapped souls. She'll always be different, set apart by her unique experience. And yet, she chose this. Given the option to stay safely in the between place or risk the complications of resurrection, she chose life. Messy, difficult, painful, beautiful life. That choice, more than anything, tells me that being alive is worth whatever price we have to pay for it. My name is Rebecca Chen, and 7 years ago, my dead sister sent me an email. That email led to a resurrection, a miracle, a second chance that defied every law of nature and science I'd ever known. Today, my sister is alive. She's married. She's a mother. She's helping others find peace after death. She's living proof that consciousness persists beyond death, that love can transcend impossible boundaries, that the connection between twins is stronger than the barrier between life and death itself. And every day, I'm grateful for the impossible, because sometimes, just sometimes, the impossible becomes possible. Dead people send emails. Trapped souls find their way back. Sisters separated by death find each other again. And butterflies named Hope land on the fingers of children who can see between worlds, reminding us that transformation is always possible, that death is not the end of the story, and that love, true love, soul-deep love, can bridge any gap, cross any boundary, survive any separation, even death itself. The end.
Did this story touch your heart? Share in the comments where you're reading from and whether you believe in second chances. Your support through comments and shares helps me bring more stories like this to life. Thank you for being part of this journey into the impossible.